This video is brought to you by Raycon. Get 20% off your first order of Raycon's Everyday E25 wireless earbuds by using the link in the description. Stay tuned for more details. Sonic Adventure 2 is my favorite Sonic game, and one of my favorite games ever made. Sonic Adventure 2 in particular was probably the first game I ever fell in love with. I try my best to be honest in these videos, to lay my heart out on the table and let you look at it. Maybe even poke at it, just don't sever any of my arteries. I wanted to assure you that although this game holds a special place in my heart, it has only remained there so readily because of its inherent quality. Not every game I'm nostalgic for maintains that same stature. Wind Waker still has a really special place in my heart. It was my first Zelda game, I have so many memories with it, and I will always love it. But I don't come back to it much, since I find it to be one of the weakest games in the series, even if I do still enjoy it. In this case, my feelings have only ever gotten stronger. I've played Sonic Adventure 2 hundreds of times throughout the years, and as of recently I've been learning the speedrun for it. I've become intimately familiar with its many flaws, and still can't help but love it to death. Where I only really love Sonic Adventure in part, I love Sonic Adventure 2 full stop. It is one of the best sequels I have ever seen. It doesn't really harken back to the classics in any meaningful way. Instead, it carves its own path. In a lot of ways, it's a bold new step. A step that would inevitably change the series forever. I want to talk about that. The ways in which Sonic Adventure 2 improves upon the original, the staggering ways in which it pushes the series to new and interesting heights. You're listening to a Sonic Adventure 2 retrospective.
Sigma Alpha 2 heading due south over the city. We're en route. Everything's a go.
This is Control Tower. We have you on radar. Report cargo status of captured Hedgehog aboard. Over.
That's a 10-4. Cargo secured on board and... What?
Didn't
The
copy
Hedgehog
that.
is
Over.
gone. He's taken out everyone aboard and...
What's wrong?
What in the
Come
world?
in. Over.
Freeze! What do you think you're doing?
My three favorite gameplay styles from the original were as follows: Sonic, Knuckles, and Gamma. Sonic was absolutely incredible, whereas Knuckles and Gamma had a ton of room to grow. Knuckles and Gamma's gameplay styles have transitioned beautifully into the sequel, with entirely new levels that take advantage of their strengths. Sonic, on the other hand, didn't have much room to grow, and in fact I'd say his and Shadow's levels took a step not necessarily backward, but in a different direction. Most of his SA1 levels were an exceptional transition from his classic outings. There were speedy moments, platforming bits, and slower explorative segments. SA2 is built in a similar way, but ratchets up the linearity a bit to offer a much more speedy style of play. City Escape is fairly straightforward. There's one path to the end, with a few secrets off to the side. It's a lot more confined than Emerald Coast. There aren't nearly as many secrets, and pathway options might as well be non-existent. Instead, the level focuses on maintaining your momentum, nailing tricks on the ramps, swinging off the poles, jumping from rail to rail, keeping your balance along the way, and even outrunning a giant truck. I do still appreciate that there are secrets to find here, but whenever I replay the level, I'm focused on the tighter path, trying to improve the rhythmic flow of speedy platforming the level encourages. It isn't to say that pathway selection is completely absent. Green Forest has a few short split paths, as does Radical Highway and Final Rush. Radical Highway's bridge segment is the most blatant vertical pathway selection the series has seen in 3D yet. Either you fall to the bottom and slowly float your way through, maintain the middle path with some pole jumps, enemies, and platforms, or grind up the railing for a swift bypass of the section entirely through the top. If you're good enough, you can even jump in between these loops to immediately reach the top. Even here though, platforming skill and reaction timing are essential if you want to keep up your combo streak of flashy maneuvers. SA1 certainly had moments where you could fall from grace. In Speed Highway, there were wall running segments that saw failure barring the player from accessing higher, faster pathways. It wasn't necessarily a priority though. Most shortcuts were achieved using spin dash jumps. SA2 has a lot more do-or-die moments, jumping from these rails onto the pumpkins in Skyrail, making it to the top of the rocket in Metal Harbor, making it to the highest bumper in Green Forest, jumping with the right timing in Final Rush on these railways, and nailing the many trick jumps that exist in every speed stage. Chiefly, these pathways aren't necessarily about extra life boxes or interesting alternate pathways. They're often about faster pathways that bypass some of the slower, more mundane platforming. Sonic Adventure 1 was more free-form, allowing for a lot more creative player expression. It was about where the player wanted to go and at what speed they wanted to do it. Sonic Adventure 2 is more about the execution of difficult tricks to maintain your rhythmic pace throughout a set of fairly linear courses. There's a significant distinction between these two styles of speed, and I can't say which I prefer over the other. One has more of a brisk pace to it, a relaxing jog through levels begging to be explored. Another is a demanding set of levels which require precise timing, with the reward being that you'll feel like a speed demon when you reach the end. At the very least, I consider them both to be the peak of Sonic's gameplay, since their control schemes and general level design are similar enough that it's hard to notice the more subtle tweaks to the level design philosophy. What I will say is that this is certainly a consistent design philosophy. With the exception of Final Chase, which is stricken by a sickness similar to Skydeck, every level is built for speed. Sonic Adventure had levels like Windy Valley, which were far too linear and didn't reflect the game's core design at all. It was pretty boring. From City Escape to Final Chase, every level is built to take advantage of their speed, so on that front I'd call it a success. To say they're flawless, though, would be overstepping my bounds. Pyramid Cave is pretty cool, built around timed hourglass switches, but when you get around the midpoint of the level, all of a sudden you have to retrieve an object to open a door. It's a major pace breaker and doesn't mesh well with the winding downhill turbines and slowly closing doors. Final Chase would be a fun stage if the gravity tubes weren't so awkward. Shadow trips every 5 seconds, often halting his speed. I find it the most cumbersome when traveling on the vertical tubes. Horizontally, I think it's a fun challenge, avoiding enemies and obstacles while maintaining your speed. Compared to Final Rush, though, it's a lukewarm way to send out the dark story. Generally, they are fun to master. Where the speed gameplay is different, the mech and treasure hunting gameplay have made significant strides. Gamma was built around beating the timer, racking up lock-on combos to add time. SA2 has repurposed the lock-on combo for something we'll talk about later. It is extremely refreshing to have levels built from the ground up for Tails and Eggman. Prison Lane is a good showcase of what to expect from these levels. Lots of enemies, some of them making a beeline for you, and a ton of opportunities for lock-on chains. These levels are about chaining efficiency. The faster you clear out the enemies, the quicker you'll be able to progress. Usually I hate when Sonic games do this, forcing you to defeat enemies to open up a door. Heroes and Rush are particularly guilty of it, but I think it's fine in SA2 since all the enemies die in one hit anyway. Plus, some enemies need to be juked around, like the Artificial Chaos, meaning you can't just hold the button down and expect a win. In fact, Eternal Engine has an even better remedy for spamming the shoot button. Dynamite packs are placed on airlocks, so you could get sucked out into space if you aren't careful with your trigger finger. It does the same thing with platforms later on. You really need to pay attention to what you're locked onto when you shoot, which is much more manageable in this game due to the changes made to the mech controls. Gamma had to turn his entire body to target enemies, which worked for his wider level design. Tails and Eggman can't turn as sharply or they'll lose all their speed. To accommodate for that, their top halves will swivel faster than their lower halves, giving you the freedom to choose your lock-ons without turning the whole mech. This is particularly useful when trying to maintain speed while quickly dealing with the obstacles in your way. You can still charge forward without completely pivoting the direction you're running. Admittedly, I'm torn on this change. While it's easy to maintain speed barreling down a hallway, it's a lot harder when the camera pivots a 90-degree angle. You'll often find yourself pushing the stick a little too far and losing all momentum. Gamma's a lot more free in this sense. The swivel does make locking onto enemies more simple, and if I wanted to be pretentious about it, I'd even say that the way Tails and Eggman control their mech suits is probably how it would feel to operate an actual mech suit. At this point, I'm just happy there are actual fun levels to play around in that are built around these more restrictive controls. Weapons Bed is fast, requiring that the player avoid colliding with enemies while hovering. It's a straightforward stage, nonetheless pretty fun. Sand Ocean is a platforming stage, since you're there before you get the hover ability. Platforming with the more limited movement can be trickier than you'd think. However, it's also a level that exposes a bit of an annoying tendency in almost all of the mech stages. Forced wait time. Whether you're waiting for a pillar to fall, platforms to move, cylinders to raise, or these insufferable elevators. Fun as these stages can be, there is an alarming amount of waiting the player has to do before they can return to high-octane running and gunning. I have fun in Cosmic Wall when I'm hover flying and getting rid of the pesky artificial chaos before they boot me into the space below. I don't have fun in Cosmic Wall when I'm placed onto a moving platform and forced to waffle about for a solid minute. Thank God the speedrun can skip these segments. Hidden Base presents a really good compromise. There are doors that can only be broken by a few shots. Same with the dynamite packs you can shoot to lower platforms. You can usually snipe these from far away if you're good enough, thus eliminating the potential wait time. Even if you are waiting behind a door or dynamite pack, you'll only be waiting for a few seconds, and those few seconds will be filled with the player rapidly removing said obstacle. Hidden Base is one of my favorite mech levels for that very reason. Almost nothing in this level forces you to wait around. It's all about how fast you can clear out your surroundings, the core of the mech gameplay, as far as I'm concerned. It's a shame that levels like Iron Gate, Prison Lane, Lost Colony, Cosmic Wall, Sand Ocean, and even Cannon's Core have forced waiting in them, but at least they don't encompass the entire level. Which brings us to treasure hunting. In my opinion, this has had the most substantial upgrade. In SA1, Knuckles had a lot of potential, but most of his levels sucked. Red Mountain was probably the best fit for him because of its verticality, and how easy it was to get Knuckles where he needed to go. Even then, though, Tikal as a hint system was just broken. She'd tell you where to go. You didn't even have to think most of the time. Casinopolis, Speed Highway, and Lost World were just too small for their own good. You can tell they were specifically built for Sonic, and Knuckles was simply inserted into them. His campaign is a flash in the pan, and not a super bright flash. There was a lot of room to grow. I think it's important to acknowledge just how influential space is for the treasure hunting levels. Big levels almost always equates to a more challenging, rewarding hunt. Wild Canyon and Dry Lagoon are great showcases of that. They're the least exciting by virtue of their smaller size. You don't have to cover as much ground, so finding the emeralds is a simple endeavor. Compare that to Meteor Herd and Mad Space. There is a lot to explore in these levels. They're extremely vertical, but also fairly wide. You'll have to be very thorough in your search to find where the shards are hiding, so you spend a lot more time building a familiarity with the map. Pumpkin Hill is an even better realization of what Red Mountain was. A wide open space, very vertical, with a ton of stuff to look for on the 3 towers and everywhere in between. They don't always have to be open, though. I actually really enjoy Death Chamber despite how cramped it can feel. There are timing-based doors to slide through, secret rooms to find, and so many unique hiding spots for the keys to ensure the player will never be able to truly know where every single hiding spot is. It's more labyrinthine, and that's alright. Just another flavor of exploration I personally can't get enough of. It's not to say they perfected treasure hunting or something, not even close. Occasionally there will be a really pace-breaking gimmick that gets in the way of your hunt. Changing water levels in Aquatic Mine, while cool, has the same problem Skydeck does. The switches are all the way at the top, and since you can never see what you've affected in the level until you travel there, you'll never know if you're on the right water level for whichever emerald is beeping. Oftentimes, you'll just have to swim back up and change the water level. It's the same problem I have with Security Hall. Chaos Emerald behind a blue safe? Tough shit, go all the way to the top and switch the blue safes on. I'm not saying these levels can't have more complexity built into their design. I just went over how Death Chamber was more confined and restrictive. The difference is that your gimmick isn't shoved off in the attic somewhere, forcing the player to backtrack all the time. That stuff feels like padding. especially because SA2 changed the radar to only beep for one shard at a time. Now, I actually consider the change to the radar to be a more complicated issue than people make it out to be. Most people seem to believe this was a change purely to pad out the game, to make sure players would have to comb over parts of the level multiple times to find all the shards. I'm not quite convinced. See, one of my biggest problems with Knuckles in SA1 was that finding the emerald shards was too swift a process. In the smaller stages, a lot of that had to do with the radar. It would beep for all 3 shards at once, and so in the smaller levels, you'd be done in seconds. Therefore, it isn't too crazy to imagine that the radar nerf was implemented to make the smaller levels a little less straightforward. I mean, imagine if Wild Canyon had SA1's radar, it'd be even more pathetic. I don't think it's a perfect solution, obviously. In the much larger levels that SA2 provides, the radar is more blatantly annoying. You're already being asked to navigate a large area, why do you have to search the same map 5 times over? I feel like Mad Space in particular would be a lot more digestible if it had SA1's radar. I actually don't consider Mad Space to be one of the worst levels. I have a lot of fun with it when the shard RNG is nice to me. The gravity mechanics can be a real hassle to get used to, but the only reason they start to infuriate me is due to the radar system being such a bad fit for that specific stage. Basically, the radar's complicated. I don't think it's good, but that also doesn't make SA1's radar good. There's more nuance here than meets the eye. I can say that about a lot of the problems the levels face. Some of them, the bigger ones, are more fun and substantial than others, but it doesn't mean that I can't possibly have fun with Security Hall because of an obnoxious gimmick, or Dry Lagoon just because it's a small, straightforward level. I can enjoy the smaller levels more than in SA1 in part due to the nerfed radar. Clearly though, they aren't the ideal realization of everything the gameplay style can be. It's a pretty huge step from the original though. I can't see this as a downgrade in any sense of the word, even if parts of the level are inferior. That's how I feel about all 3 styles in a broad sense. Every style has its more blatant weaknesses, some that are even a little worse than in the original, but none that come close to making their styles as a whole worse than their original incarnations. SA2 is not the peak of what these styles can offer, they're simply a step towards the ideal. Just as Sonic Adventure's soundtrack infiltrated my Spotify, so too has Sonic Adventure 2's soundtrack. There's something in here for everyone. Sonic's no-nonsense, upbeat rock and roll, Shadow's grungy electronic rock, and Rouge's jazz infusion. Every character has their own genre of music. It's incredible. One of the most diverse and creative soundtracks the series has ever seen, and I love listening to these songs using my Raycon Everyday E25 wireless earbuds. I listen with them while I'm on runs, making dinner, or laying on my couch with my cat, wondering when the world will no longer be on fire. Fun activities! Raycon's Everyday E25 wireless earbuds are a perfect fit for this very strange activity. They have an incredibly impressive battery life, noise isolation, and they're half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market. With the holidays coming up, I think Raycons are a perfect gift. You can use them for basically any activity under the sun. It is a limited time offer, so if you're thinking about getting some Raycons, now is the perfect time. Go to buyraycon.com/KingK to get 20% off your first order. That's buyraycon.com/KingK to get 20% off your first purchase of Raycon's Everyday E25 wireless earbuds. Break them out with Live and Learn. You can never go wrong with Crush 40.
Well, let's just get down to business then, shall we, Mr. President? I won't bore you with all the details since I know you are a very busy man. Mr. President. My demands are quite simple. Surrender to the Eggman Empire and make no attempts to resist. Otherwise, your country will cease to exist. You have 24 hours to give me your answer.
No way!
What the?
I can see how this selection of levels doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. It's a fun set, but many of them have fairly annoying issues, and it isn't exactly clear what the strengths of each playstyle are on first blush. I mean, sure, why not just use all the hint monitors in the Emerald stages? Once you hit the third monitor, you're basically flat out told where it is. Why not just run around in mech stages and spam the shoot button? Why not just avoid all the ramps in City Escape? Just make it to the end of these linear hallways. That's all the game requires of you, after all. This is often how I felt playing Sonic Adventure. When playing Knuckles stages, I'd just look for Tikal so I could finish quickly. With Tails, I'd fly to the end without a care in the world, skipping most of the level. I only got more out of Sonic's level design because it was an intrinsically rewarding process to explore his levels and find shortcuts. There were zero extrinsic indicators that would tell me how I was supposed to play the game. Sonic Adventure 2 adds an extrinsic indicator, one that seems inconsequential, but is likely the sole reason it remains my favorite Sonic game to this date: the ranking system. If this game did not have a ranking system, I genuinely don't know if I'd still love it as much as I do. Which sounds like hyperbole, but just stick with me. This ranking system is what encouraged me to learn the ins and outs of these levels. It pushed me to figure out the most effective and fun ways to play them. Much like Devil May Cry will rank the player on their performance, incentivizing players to switch up their weapons and combos, Sonic Adventure 2's rating system works differently for all three styles, tending toward what's most fun or stylish for each. Ranks are determined by your point tally, which is itself determined by a myriad of different factors. How many enemies you beat, rings collected, tricks performed, basically everything you do has a point total associated with it, and if you reach the point threshold, you'll be given a rank from E to A. Each gameplay style has a set of unique bonuses that the player will need to collect in order to reach their threshold. For Sonic and Shadows levels, it's all about the time bonus. If you reach the level before a certain time, you'll get more points, making it more likely that you get the A rank. For Tails and Eggman, it's about efficient chaining. You'll get points for killing an enemy, sure, but you'll get much more if you get a high chain going. Knuckles and Rouge don't necessarily have a time bonus, but there's a timer for each individual emerald found that resets when you find one. The amount of time it takes you to find each will determine how many points you get at the end. You can quickly figure out what each style requires of you from this. Speed stages are not just about finishing fast, they're also about performing tricks, rail grinding, and defeating a few of the enemies along the way. Mech stages are about chaining together as many enemies as possible without getting hit or losing your lock-on, meaning you'll have to think about what you're shooting. Finally, treasure hunting is about how efficiently you can glide through each level to find shards as fast as you possibly can. You have to know how to get around the level quickly, where the rockets are, which walls you can climb up, where you can dig, etc. Each style has a set of discouragements to keep the player on track. You can't dilly-dally for too long in the speed stages, or you won't get the time bonus. You can't spam the shoot button in mech stages and turn your brain off, or you won't get the combo bonus. Finally, you'll lose points for using too many hint monitors, so you'll have to rely on only 1 or 2 hints for the A. These rank requirements are pretty strict too. The game isn't afraid to hand out lower ranks for subpar performance. It makes obtaining those A ranks all the more delicious. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this might not be my favorite Sonic game if it didn't have this system, and if the system wasn't as strict as it is. Later games, I feel, miss the point of what a ranking system is really meant to achieve. As much as I love Sonic Generations, you get an S rank by sneezing. You may as well not be ranked at the end. All it incentivizes the player to do is not die. In Sonic Adventure 2, getting a B rank is as annoying as it is inspiring. It sucks to get a low rank, hear the barely made it from Sonic, but it is in equal parts motivating. You want to prove to the game that you understand its levels, that you can rip through them stylishly. It has a command over mastery that the rest of the series will never be able to match up to in quite the same way. I'm not saying it magically eliminates every problem I have with the level design. I still get annoyed when I reach Aquatic Mine or Cosmic Wall or Final Chase. Hell, an unfortunate side effect of making the Emerald stages time-based is that Emerald locations are based on RNG, so you could just be saddled with bad luck. However, what it does do is thread each level together and gives me something to focus on besides the more underwhelming level gimmicks. At least in Cosmic Wall I can focus on getting big chains while on the moving platform. At least in Final Chase I can focus on getting it over with quickly. It's not some kind of cure-all, but it allowed me to look at each of these levels with a different set of priorities, and it's my most played Sonic game to date as a result. It's the only Sonic game I've been confident enough to speedrun. I'm even on the board now. I will say, having practiced the speedrun, the ranking system isn't exactly built for speed. At first, it was incredibly jarring for me to beat a speed stage in record time, only to be met with a lower rank. It's a difficult tightrope to walk. If you just focus on speed, it's easy to ignore most of the level in favor of getting to the end quickly. You won't interact with any of the enemies, you won't find any of the secrets, you won't pull off tricks or do anything fancy. In the classics, in order to speedrun effectively, you had to first learn the level inside and out. You had to explore it first to figure out the route, and then you could blitz through it. I view the ranking system as part of that same learning process. To get A ranks, you have to involve yourself with most parts of the level, leading to a deeper understanding of the design as a result, priming you to beat each level even faster. It sounds a bit silly, I know, but getting these A ranks is extremely fulfilling, and one of the reasons it's such an intensely replayable game. I don't think enough is said about how much mileage SA2 gets out of its levels. There are 4 additional missions in each level, along with the initial story clear, that each have ranks to achieve. In SA1, the extra missions were usually pretty awful. Bigs were an abhorrent nightmare. Usually it involved beating the level within a certain time, collecting rings, racing an even faster Sonic, I guess? I don't quite buy that he's faster. Sonic Adventure 2 streamlines the mission process. Mission 2 is about how fast you can collect 100 rings. Mission 3 is about finding the lost Chow. Mission 4 is beating the level under the gun of a timer, and the final mission is a redesigned stage layout dubbed as Hard Mode. The only one here I don't like is the 4th mission. It's virtually unchanged from the initial mission and feels like padding. However, the other missions are really fun, and the ranking system allows the player to have an experience separate from the core level. Finding the quickest path to 100 rings asks you to pay attention to where the earliest ring placements are, encouraging the player to find hidden ring boxes and the like. A ranking is solely based on completion time, so you can focus on collecting. It works the best in treasure hunting stages, since those don't have obvious rings to pick up on a linear path. You just have to search for the easiest places to access rings. Lost Chow missions are all about finding secret areas. Often you'll need the Mystic Melody, a power-up you can find hidden in the regular stages. Power-ups in this game are handled so much better than in the original. Instead of clumsily funneling yourself into mandatory upgrades in the hub world, Adventure 2 will place mandatory upgrades inside the levels on your path, and leave truly optional upgrades as hidden rewards for completionists. I'm still not convinced Sonic games need upgrades, but it's a better way to dole them out than in the original, at least for me. Finding the Mystic Melody for each character was really fun. Tails and Eggman have hidden lasers that do more area of effect damage, or armor for more health. Not all of them are winners. The Ancient Light is about as useless as it's always been, and the sunglasses are kinda lame, even if I do think they look cool. However, they are much more fun to find, and actually give the player more of a reason to revisit earlier levels with newly acquired power-ups. As I was saying, the Lost Chow makes use of this explorative mindset. It's still a time-based challenge, but it's a challenge you have to first approach with a more explorative mind. Finally, Hard Mode is a complete stage revamp. Harder jumps, more enemies, that sort of stuff. The remixes are pretty fun, and you're ranked the same as the main level categories. Plus, if you're not a fan of Emerald RNG, Hard Mode has the same Emerald places every time, at the cost of them being pretty tricky to track down. It might not sound like much, but it's remarkable just how fun these simple little shakeups are, and how efficient they are in terms of reusing content. In the original, reuse was fairly obvious, giving characters the same level with virtually no changes. In SA2, each level is unique, though 2 characters might share the same visual theme. Radical Highway and Mission Street, Pumpkin Hill and Skyrail, Lost Colony and Eternal Engine. Instead, the reuse comes from the additional missions, prompting you to play the same level multiple times, but for objectives that shift how you have to play them, besides Mission 4, which sucks. Giving a rank to all the missions adds even more of a reason to check them out, to see how hard mode switches things up, or to see where the hidden Chow is, or to recognize there's a hidden ring in Metal Harbor just for the second mission, or at least, I assume that's what this lone ring is for. I would imagine it hard to make levels for a Sonic game. He moves so fast, the levels need to be huge to accommodate that speed, adding more to the necessary development time. Even with mech and treasure hunting, adding more levels probably would have been a hefty process, so it's cool to see that they were able to make the most of the content in the game without making it feel padded out or frustrating. Going for all the emblems in SA1 was not a comparably fun experience, and I'll leave that there for you to ruminate. Another extra SA2 completely champions over the original is the Chow Garden. Chows are not really my favorite part of these games anymore, and truthfully, it's hard for me to find the words for this side attraction as a result. I considered not even talking about them, but they're core to the series' identity, and I might as well mention them. I find SA2 Chow a lot more engaging to raise since they have so many different forms based on what you feed them and who's doing the feeding. Raising Hero and Dark Chow can even give you hidden bonus gardens. There's just a lot more meat in SA2, and you can select the gardens from the stage select instead of having to head there through a hub world. It's nice to stop by after a mission to deposit your animals and chaos drives. That said, this is still nothing more than a novelty, and I don't have much to say about it that hasn't already been said. It provides ample reason to defeat enemies and explore the levels, but I'd be lying if I said I derived the same enjoyment from it as I did when I was a kid. Both these games have the issue of Chow races and karate being complete snooze fests, as you have zero control over whether your Chow wins or loses. It's simply down to whether or not you have the better stats. They are damn cute little tykes though. I wish I could channel my inner child again with this, when I really cared about going through all the steps for a Chaos Chow. Nowadays, it feels like a whole lot of work for nothing satisfying in return.
Now I know what's going on. The military has mistaken me for the likes of you. So, where do you think you're going with that emerald? Say something, you fake hedgehog!
Chaos Control!
Wow, he's fast! Hey, it's not his speed, he must be using the Chaos Emerald to warp!
My name is Shadow. I'm the world's ultimate life form. There's no time for games. Farewell!
Sonic Adventure 2 changes a lot about what the first game established, but the most readily apparent difference is the lack of a hub world. I'm of the belief that while novel, Sonic Adventure's hub world was damaging to its pacing and malleability. I go over this in more detail during my SA1 video, but suffice to say, I think it harmed the amount of stages there could be for each character, and didn't contain much satisfying content that would see you exploring the hub world. It was a glorified level select. Pair the removal of the hub world with the streamlined story select, and we've already eliminated most of the first game's pacing and story issues. If you'll recall, my biggest problem with the first game's narrative was how needlessly confusing it was to digest all of it. Chaos's story was spread through all 6 campaigns at completely random points, often taking away from moments in the individual stories that should have been more impactful. The way in which these stories intersected was also pretty hit or miss, leading to a slew of interesting stories bogged down by an ambitious choose-your-own-adventure format. What I adore so much about the switch to a hero and dark story is that it retains the same strengths as the 6-character story select. One of the only things I liked about the original's non-linear character order was getting to see other characters show up. Why are they there? What were they doing? In SA2, you've pitted 2 groups against each other who fight on a regular basis, meaning no matter which one you pick, there will be moments where the other side makes an appearance, and you'll be left wondering what they've been up to all this time. You learn from Shadow that Prison Island will blow up in 15 minutes. Where did the plan originate? How did they carry it out? It gets me intrigued to play the dark story. While on paper it's less exciting than 6 intersecting stories, it's much easier to manage and leads to far greater internal consistency within the individual stories. Every level plays off the next since we're now working as a team. Hero Story starts with Sonic escaping captivity, encountering Shadow, Knuckles and Rouge hunting for pieces of the Master Emerald, Tails going to break Sonic out of prison, with a fun-filled escape sequence until our heroes all meet up in the big city, break into Eggman's desert base, and travel to the Space Colony arc for the climax. Knuckles is kinda on his own mission, so I guess you could say his involvement is tertiary at best, but I'm personally okay with it because the other characters often react to his absence.
What's up with that knucklehead anyway? Trying to take over the shuttle? I thought we were toast for sure.
Knuckles also doesn't really strike me as one to screw around when the Master Emerald's in danger, so going on a solo mission isn't that jarring. My point is more that this is a much more fun story than anything in the first adventure. There's enough time to build up the antagonistic force, get our heroes pitted up against it, and fight that evil. On the flip side, getting to see the villains team up in the Dark Story is extremely cathartic. And I think people really take for granted how special it is that we got to play as Shadow, Rouge, and Dr. Eggman himself for an entire story. It's a story with a lot more frenetic energy. Sonic and Shadow have an anime showdown, Eggman blows up an entire island and then half of the moon, Sonic and friends break into Eggman's pyramid base to steal his rocket to the Space Colony arc, where the principal 3 characters duke it out in a battle to either save or destroy the world. Each character has enough time and stage space to make their mark. Sonic's always on the move, eager to escape captivity and face his problems head-on, but that usually leads him to trouble, namely when he gets caught by the military, and then again when he goes to save Amy and Tails at the Space Colony. Sonic never really has a plan, he just charges in and does the best he can. Tails operates as the brains, a little less timid than in the first game, piloting a mech of his own design. He takes matters into his own hands, tracking Sonic down, breaking him out of prison, and even creating a fake Chaos Emerald. He's still a bit inexperienced though, which lands him into trouble when Eggman tricks him into revealing that Sonic's Emerald was a fake. An interesting part of the hero versus evil dynamic is that each character gets their own thematically fitting rival. You might think Sonic and Eggman are the dynamic duo of hero and villain, but in this case, pitting Tails and Eggman together couldn't have made more sense. Eggman's a mad scientist, a brilliant inventor, and a force to be reckoned with. He's older than Tails, more experienced, and more willing to make the hard calls, at the cost of his not-so-subtle desire to take over the world. Of course, Eggman doesn't care about his companions as much. They formed an alliance out of necessity. He was more than willing to let Rouge die when she was caught by the military. This is wonderfully contrasted when Tails seeks revenge for his fallen friend. Tails cares a lot about Sonic, so his death gives him the courage to come at Eggman with everything he's got. He still has a lot to learn to compete with Eggman's intellect, but his heart is undeniably in the right place. Shadow, on the other hand, is about as stubborn as Sonic. His single-minded desire to wipe out humanity is what motivates his character. Saving Rouge from death was a particularly poignant moment for his eventual development, a time where he went against his own instincts to help someone in need. Deep down, maybe this cold hedgehog isn't so different from Sonic. Knuckles and Rouge are a bit more comedic in their parallels, but it fits their one-track minds. Knuckles is out to restore the pieces of the Master Emerald because it's the sacred gem he's tasked with protecting. He needs to get it back. Rouge is in it for the superficial. She thinks the emerald shards are pretty and wants to claim them for herself. You can obviously see who's in the right and who's in the wrong here. Nevertheless, it's really fun to watch these two eclectic personalities bounce off of each other and even gain a bit of respect near the end. Two very devoted treasure hunters. When all's said and done, it's not a very long set of events. It's a standard Sonic vs. Eggman affair. It's a brisk yet entertaining bout between good and evil, one that succeeds in creating memorable moments far more than its predecessor, while also nailing the last story concept where its predecessor absolutely failed. Sonic Adventure 2 has the same general last story setup. All of the stories converge to fight off the big bad, except this time the seeds were planted much more naturally. Where the original would shove to call flashbacks in the characters' faces with little to no reaction from said characters, Sonic Adventure 2 raises natural questions like where did Shadow come from? Why did he want to wipe out humanity? Why was the art created? Stuff like that. They're not questions explicitly raised by the story, but they're questions the player could realistically be asking themselves. Either way, the reveal of Gerald Robotnik's Doomsday Plan is pretty chilling. It's a world-ending event set into motion years prior, accidentally activated by Eggman, who had no idea about his grandfather's plans. It provides context as to why Shadow wants to destroy humanity so badly. He harbors the same blinding hatred as Gerald did. Since the Space Colony arc is now on a crash course for Earth, our heroes and villains have to team up to stop it and save the world. Every single character gets a shot in. Tails opens up the way for Eggman, who opens up the way for Rouge, who opens up the way for Knuckles, who opens up the way for Sonic. It's a team effort. No one contribution is more or less important than another's. Everyone needs to head to the cannon's core. We even get an awesome turnaround for Shadow, finally breaking free of the hatred Gerald imbued into him, courtesy of Amy's encouraging pep talk. Always found this moment a little too quick and cheesy for my liking, but it's a good moment for both him and Amy. Which is good, because Amy ain't exactly winning any awards in this game.
I hate you! You guys always leave me behind and have all the fun!
He beats down the failed prototype ultimate life form, an embodiment of what Shadow could have been without his kindness. Now all the pieces are in play for a banger of a team-up. Sonic and Shadow going super to stop the space colony from crashing into Earth. Functionally, this finale is almost the same as the one against Perfect Chaos. Super transformations, Crush 40, heightened stakes, but Sonic Adventure 2 had a much, much stronger build-up to these events. Every single playable character had a role to play in getting Sonic and Shadow where they needed to be. Everyone pitched in. This is a Hail Mary, one that the both of them can't possibly walk away from. Not only is the build-up stronger, so is the bittersweet resolution. Sonic and Shadow's combined chaos control took too much power, and ultimately Shadow couldn't keep up. And so, he died saving humanity, the ultimate defiance of his master's wishes. In the end, he was able to keep his promise to Maria. This ending scene hurts to watch every single time. Despite everything they've all been through, despite what they've all done to each other, everyone shares a somber moment together in remembrance of Shadow. Tails and Eggman ruminate on why Gerald would do something so heinous. Knuckles and Rouge talk about their future. Sonic and Amy express interest in returning home, but not without my favorite line from him in the entire series.
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
For all their bluster, Sonic and Shadow are kindred spirits. Deep down, they both care about others, and they both want to maintain peace. Their rivalry is one of my favorites in all of fiction. It's incredibly simple, I know that, but I love it all the same. Sonic starts off agitated that he's been mistaken for a criminal hedgehog, but by the end of the story, they're bantering back and forth like old buddies. Sonic really did come to care about Shadow, and won't let his sacrifice go to waste. In the face of Sonic's portrayal as a dumb, joke-cracking machine, and Shadow's portrayal as a cold, unfeeling soldier, it's humbling to remember a time where these characters had a bit more pathos. It's a powerful line, one that stuck with me all these years. Sonic Adventure 2 isn't a complicated story, and it doesn't really try to do anything you haven't seen before. At the same time, it doesn't overstay its welcome. There are tons of amazing character moments and rivalries, and it's a blast from start to finish.
Maria, I just don't know anything anymore. I often wonder why I was created, what my purpose is for being here. Maybe if I go down there, I will find the answers. Maybe.
I've tried to make it clear throughout this video that although this is one of my favorite video games, it is nevertheless a step short of its full potential. It is a massive and exciting improvement on a flawed base, one that I enjoy playing to this day, but it's still a bittersweet feeling. I guess you could call me one of those butthurt Sonic fans that's always yearned for an Adventure 3. I don't scream it from the rooftops at every available moment, but it is something I would have liked once upon a time. The problems of Sonic Adventure 2, more than anything, light the way to a sequel which would better iron out those kinks. Make levels that better fit the gameplay styles. Less annoying gimmicks, more streamlined design that fits the core 3 styles. But time has soldiered on, and despite remarks to the contrary, we never did get our third adventure. It's such a weird base to make a Sonic game out of. Mech shooting and treasure hunting spliced in with high-speed platforming, yeah, it's weird. It doesn't really make any sense, and yet it's something I and many other people enjoy in spite of its out-of-left-field nature. doubtless many other people would have loved to see it carried to even greater heights. Sonic Adventure 2 is a very flawed video game, in ways that are perhaps more striking to me than any of my other favorites. There are levels that annoy the living shit out of me, and yet I keep crawling back. That said, the time for Adventure 3 is over. I hope they never try it. Sonic Team has changed. They've changed writers, they've changed the way Sonic plays, they've changed the voice cast, they've changed so much about him. It's a completely different era. And a Sonic Adventure 3 in Sonic's current paradigm would no doubt be an utter disaster. I have a lot of pessimism toward revival projects. Despite my love for returns to form like Crash 4, there's always something there that feels a bit displaced from time. You just can't capture that same spirit 100%, no matter how much you study the level design, the writing, the overall design. I just don't think this is something that can be recreated after the passage of time and exchange of artists, especially in the case of Sonic. I hate to be gloomy at the end of a video about one of my favorite games of all time, but it truly does suck that this has to be my favorite Sonic game. That these ideas couldn't have been further improved, that we couldn't get another bangin' set of levels. For mech and treasure hunting especially, this was the first game where they were really allowed to break into their own, to define themselves in unique levels. Adventure 1 in many ways felt like a prototype for everyone besides Sonic, and it saddens me that these characters only really got one game to shine. I'm kinda frustrated where Sonic's been lately. I haven't connected with him in a very long time. Playing Adventure 2 again has made that all the more clear. There was a time where this blue hedgehog was the center of my whole world. Now, he's a curiosity. Wonder what I'll try next, I say in the back of my head, remembering the glory days. This isn't meant to be elitist. I don't want to come off that way. I enjoy several of the modern Sonic games a lot, just as I now enjoy a lot of the classics. Mania, even, was fantastic. There's just something about his current direction that feels aimless, like no one really knows what they want to do with him anymore. For all of their faults, returning to the adventure games have reminded me of a time where there was a strange, yet clear vision of what Sonic was. It was a time where I understood him the best, and a time I truly do wish I'll be able to return to soon.